Hello, my name is Chris Durso from Cape Coral, Florida, in the United States, and today I'd like to demonstrate how to use the Sonitus FX compressor within the Sonar X2 Producer DAW, go over some of the features and functions of that compressor. So what I've got is a project brought up here with 7 tracks of drums. I'd like to bring those all down to a single track and compress them nice and tight within the mix. So I've got them all sent over to a bus where the compressor is active, so I can control the compressor with this bus. Okay, here's the Sonitus compressor. The first thing you see is your input meter. The input displays the peak input level and the audio signal going into the compressor. There is a threshold above it, which sets the decibel level where the compressor will kick in. The ratio controls the amount of compression that will be applied to the signal once the level is reached. It goes from 0.4 to 1 to 30 to 1, which is basically limiting. The knee setting determines the decibel range above and below the threshold where the compressor will kick in. It can be a hard setting, which means that it will take place immediately, or a soft setting, which means that the compression is gradually applied. There are 2 types of compressor within this Sonitus compressor. We have a vintage, which is a nice, smooth, slow compression. You see that on a lot of vintage boards like the Teletronics. And we have a normal compression, which is a typical modern compressor. It's very clean and transparent and very flat. This graph is your compression curve graph. The diagonal line is the crossover point where compression will or will not occur, with your white dot being the signal as it occurs in real time. Above the diagonal, you're increasing gain. Below the diagonal, you're decreasing gain. And you can see in real time what your compression is doing to pull down or actually boost the gain level. The gain reduction meter shows how much you're reducing the gain from compression, and then next to it is your gain control, which will show how much you want to make up the gain that you have most likely subtracted from the compression output signal. You do have your overload section here where it will light up in red if you're overloading the output, and your output meter, which displays the post-compression signal. Below that is your limiter toggle, which will apply a look ahead of 1.5 milliseconds automatically to your compression. And below that is the TCR, which is your transient controlled release. This is a specific algorithm that automatically adjusts the release time in real time to avoid fast compression changes. It can have a positive effect on a lot of audio material and help reduce that pumping and breathing type sound. Okay, you also have your attack and your release. Attack controls the amount of time it takes to reach full compression once the threshold level has been reached. And release controls the amount of time that the compressor takes to go back to an inactive state after the level has fallen below the threshold. You also have a number of parameters up above here. You have a bypass button. When it is yellow, it is active and you are bypassing the compression. You have an undo button, which will undo your previous settings. You have setup A, setup B, allows you to use a specific saved setup that you like to rely on automatically. You have a reset button, which resets all the way back to default as opposed to undoing your most recent changes. And you have a number of presets. Now, up here you can see a drop-down list of the various presets. They're a good reference if you want to, for example, work with an electric guitar or specifically a kick drum. It will apply the most common compression setting for those various types of situations. Okay, so let's try a preset here, a complete mix preset. Even though it's just the drum mix, you'll notice the most change with this. You see a fairly soft knee. It's not a kind of a table, a shelf, a very tight angle. And let's hear, first of all, the regular signal, which is this. Okay, now I will bring in the compressor. Now you can hear a tighter, more defined mix overall. Again, without kind of a hollow, roomy sounding mix. And now a very tight, punchy mix. So that's just an idea of how to use the compressor. Again, there are a lot of variations within this. You could see the pressure, the threshold moving, your gain reduction meters moving. The limiter was on to keep that pumping and breathing. But the best way to work with a compressor is just to experiment with various mixes and get an idea of its ability. Thanks a lot.